What's all right? So Zion, it's the time where young players start to get their contracts, and we saw what's that the 2019 draft,
Yep.
2018 draft,
19.
2019 draft is now slated to be the next people to get their big contracts. And
I'm sorry. Up next is 2022 or 2020. Yeah.
2019 was Zion, Ja Morant, everyone who got their big contracts. Next slated to get their big paydays is the 2020 draft class. Guys like LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, Desmond Baines, your boy Tyrese Maxey. So let's break this down here and just look ahead a little bit, get out in the forefront of guys who are going to be looking to be extended come next summer. And let's put them in the categories of obvious future max contracts, gonna get a re-signed deal, but how big is it gonna be? And head scratchers, I got no idea of this guy is gonna do. So who do we put in the obvious category of that draft class? They're going to get re-signed. They're going to get a max re-signed.
I think right off the bat, and you guys could tell me, there's two guys, in my opinion, that are no doubt. It seems like Matt has maybe a third guy who's no doubt. But LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, even with the Gobert stuff, to me have to be like guaranteed maxes. I don't think they could get away from it.
Rudy Gobert is the reason you don't give Anthony Edwards a max, you've got on ball. I'll pass out. That would be that's like malpractice of. Oh my god, that would make me. I
didn't even think about that. No, you've got to force ownership to sell. You've got to fire everybody. You've got to. Oh my god! If that ends up tying them in a bind where they can't give Anthony Edwards a max, and they're like, "Hey man, we can give you like 170, but we can't give you a max." You got to say you got to force ownership.
I don't think that would come.
It's not going to bind them, but I think for LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, they kind of fall in the same category as Zion Williamson with the Pelicans, where you have two franchises that have been desolate, to use your word, Jake, desolate, have been just mediocre, cannot penetrate that barrier. And if you have someone as box office as Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, who are you to not max extend them? Like who have you had that you can say like, no, because we had this player and we didn't give who is there? Like Anthony Edwards is the next one. Like clearly is going to be next up. And LaMelo Ball has brought more excitement to the New Orleans Hornets in 2 years than they've had since Michael Jordan took over. Charlotte Hornets, sorry. Then since Michael Jordan has taken over. So
right. Yeah, these are the Trae Youngs and Lukas of the past years where it's not even a second thought. Mainly for two reasons. One, they deserve it. Two, what's the alternative for that franchise? So
if I can see an owner / GM not doing it, it's Michael Jordan, even with LaMelo. But I even think you've got to realize the gravitational pull that your star has, and LaMelo Ball is the type of player. Anthony Edwards is also the type of player that makes people want to play with them. Like if you're a player looking for greener pastures, or if you're a star or an up and coming star looking for greener pastures, and you want to pair yourself with another young up and coming star, those are two guys you look at and say, like, I would love to play alongside those two. They're going to give me 100% every night. They're going to go out and do their job at an all-star type level. And we're going to be able to win games. So I think we're right to put them in that no doubt. Matt, did you have a third person that you think is no doubt? I did have a third,
and that's Desmond Baines. I think it's incredibly Jake's face.
Interesting. No, it's just interesting. It's just interesting to me that Desmond Baines is getting a max contract, but somehow during our playoff draft, he was a bad pick. Go ahead, Matt.
So the Memphis Grizzlies.
That is great. That's great, by the way. That's such a full circle moment.
Forced the NBA champions to 6 games without their star, Ja Morant. That is a heck of an accomplishment. When you have two players so young and so integral to the team, they had the second best record in the NBA. Desmond Baines is going to say, give me the max. You have to give me the max. Look how good we are. And they're going to say, yes, you and Ja, you're our max players. will sort everything else out. That's just what you have to do. He actually leads the draft class in win shares, like for the 2020 draft class. Like
Matt, I haven't heard win shares in a good little bit, man. There you go. Pull it back up.
win shares has some problems. I'm sorry, wrong. Actually, Tyrese Halliburton is first in win shares, which doesn't help my case. But he's first in win shares for 48. No, he's not. That's Paul Reed. But he's first.
Uh-oh.
he
Uh-oh.
Let's go.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
I thought but he is the most important. He is, of all the players in the draft class, he's been the most important to a team that's contended for a title. And I know that helps that he got drafted 30th overall, but his step up and improvement from year 1 to year 2, there's a chance that next year he averages 24, 25 points per game. And that's just something you can't, like, his trajectory just keeps going.
Is he... Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jake. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you ever envision him, though, and this really isn't what the max contract is, but it's how players are judged when they are on a max contract. Can he be the first or second best player on a team?
He can be the second best player on a team.
So then, yeah, I think maybe you do. Now then the question then becomes, can you fit everyone else in if you do give him that max? And I don't believe they can when you get their Brandon Clarks and all the other guys.
So there's two reasons why I just slightly push back on the Desmond Baines thing. I do think he's a great young player. I think he's going to demand a big extension. Why I don't know if it's max is if he does what he did this year again next year, which all signs point that he's going to, but he's got to prove it again next year. It's not built in like it is Anthony Edwards and LaMelo that they're going to get this max next year. Desmond Baines got to do it again and show me that this wasn't a flash in the pan, that he can sustain that level of play. And then, Jake, your point is the second reason why I would push back on it, because you have to make sure that if you're going to take up a max slot for Desmond Baines, that you have all your ducks in a row, that you're okay with who you have your money allocated to for the next year, for who you want to sign, that you can bring back those other players who have contracts that are going to run out to make sure your team is better. And every summer, there's some star that wants to get moved. There's some pieces around the league you want to move. If you lock yourself into Desmond Baines, you better make sure you don't miss out on some other star, some other piece that you could bring in for that max slot. There's just things to think about. But we could be a year from now, Matt, and Desmond Baines is in the no doubt he should have gotten that max contract, et cetera, or no doubt he should get it by the end of the summer. He's just not there. If there could be a middle ground between gets it, but how much, and definitely max, I'd put him right there. He's just in limbo.
That's fair. Yeah.
He's just in limbo with it for me. But I agree the trajectory that Desmond Baines is on is nearing that max slot. And between him and DeAnthony Melton, they made that series much, much, much closer than it should have been without Ja. So you got to give him credit for that.
And like moving in, you mentioned, big, but how big? I think I agree. He fits in that category. And a guy who we do have in that category on our script, but I think is more apt to be in the obvious or trending towards obvious, is Tyrese Halliburton. He's a guy who has put up production, granted on bad teams, but you look at what the Pacers have done and what they continue to do with their youth movement. Miles Turner apparently is expected to be moved this offseason. So they're really stripping down and committing to their youth, which the first move and the biggest move so far they've done to do that was to bring in Tyrese Halliburton. So I'm not saying that he's that much better than Desmond Baines or Tyrese Maxey or a couple of the other guys who we've mentioned, but I just think he means more to that franchise than some of the other guys do.
Yeah, I agree. Tyrese Halliburton coming next summer is a guy that we're going to say, like, yes, give him his contract. Just depends on how much. But I think Tyrese Halliburton falls in that category of player where the team has liberty to go to him and say, hey, man, we want to invest with you long term. We like you want to help build a team around you or help you be a very contributing piece into a team that we're building, but work with us. Like, if you sit here and demand a max, that just puts us in a bind for who else we can put around you, next to you, who else we can re-sign. Know that if you're Tyrese Halliburton. And are you ready to take Indiana on your back, Paul George style? Because if you're ready to do that and we're confident in doing that, here go your max.
Halliburton has the disadvantage of Indiana saying, we didn't trade a max. Like, we didn't look at what we traded for you. We didn't trade someone that was like worthy of a max back to Sacramento.
That's
So,
true. Traded
but I
Sabonis.
know that's on Sacramento because Sacramento's
Yeah.
idiots. But like
Yeah.
the way they valued Halliburton in that trade wasn't as a max player. They'll give him a really big contract. I just don't see Halliburton getting a max.
Here's what I'm gonna lay it out. 22-year-old who averages 17.5 points per game, 9.6 assists, 1.8 steals on 41% 3-point shooting. That guy's a max player, especially if he's 2 years in the league. 2 years in the league doing that.
If all the other numbers stay and that 17 goes to 25, max him. But if it stays in that 20 range or below, 190 him, 180 him. But I can't give him a max.
I can live with that.
I can't give him a max.
I can live with that.
You know what I mean? And if I'm the Pacers, I go to Tyrese and say, hey man, what can't you do with 190 that you could do with 230, with 210? What can't you do? You can go everywhere else. Everybody else is going. I get it. And that's a little bit conjecture and trying to be funny because it's your value in the league. I get it. But like, you're not willing to leave 20 on the table for me so we can go get somebody else too and really try to build a team. Like, is that really what's going to stop you from that? Because
the players who they're going to be looking to build, like my point about the youth, is just that those guys are going to be cheap. The players who they're going to be bringing in are, Benedict Mathurin and draft picks and younger guys who probably aren't going to be on big veteran max,
right.
Big time deals.
And to that point, the Pacers are they're not in win now mode. They're not in win soon mode. Hell, they can't even see the land of where win is yet. So like, it's not like if we give them this money now, oh man, now we can't go get Damian Lillard or now we can't go get Donovan Mitchell because you weren't in that mode anyway. You weren't in that stratosphere anyway. So maybe it's just a means of locking Tyrus Halliburton up so we know we can move forward with it. But we can move forward to the last player that we think good or big contract, but how big? And that's y'all boy, Tyrese Maxey. I'm almost afraid to ask you guys the question of how big do you think is. Jake, I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit for not just slapping Tyrese Maxey right into the guaranteed max contract range.
I didn't do this, or else he would have been in there. If I had made this list, he would have been in there just based off principle.
I give Matt. I see what you did there, based off principle. But I give Matt just as much credit. I actually might give Matt more credit.
Honestly, the way Maxey's contract's going to work, if they don't trade him in some kind of, not that they're, but like there's a chance they trade him just because they're in win now mode and he's a valuable asset. But so the max, if he were to get a max contract, it wouldn't kick in the 2023-24 season. It would kick in the season after. So it would just replace the Tobias contract essentially on the payroll. So it slots in, so the timing works. But Tobias' contract isn't quite a max, and the Sixers are such a weird team where the way the roster, you can't project the roster like a year in advance because.
Especially with Daryl Morey in the front office, y'all are susceptible.
Because 13 months ago, Ben Simmons was the second best player on the 1 seed in the East, and now he's a laughingstock. And it's just really hard to gauge exactly. And look at the Jimmy Butler gone and out, the Al Horford gone out, and it's fast moving doors. I just don't think Maxey is gotten to the point where he's proven himself to be a max level player yet. I think he's a great guy to be the third best player on a contender, and that's where he fits contract wise.
Y'all must have forgot who's going to bat for Tyrese Maxey. A man by the name of Rich Paul is entering that office. And if you don't think he's going to throw his weight around when the Sixers are looking for extra assets and players to bring in, I mean,
to that point, Rich Paul don't want any of his players in Philly. So if it comes to we're in contract disputes, Maxey, guess what? Rich Paul is like the only agent in the NBA where the player works for Chris Paul or for Rich Paul. Like Maxey, sorry, buddy, but you know where you're going. You're going to LA with all my other clients.
Sure.
You're going
I
to
don't care if you don't want to go there.
Okay, yeah.
I think a lot of it will depend on, as Matt said, what the team looks at that time. I feel very confident in saying they're going to give him a sizable extension, as big as you're going to see Tyler Herro get. Maybe it's not a max contract, and the only reason I say maybe not is as Joel ages, I think there's going to be more of a, I guess, directive, or they're going to start to lean on some of the guys who have been around here for a while, saying look, we have 3 more years with Joel before he starts really falling off a cliff. Let's do your contract so that it's backloaded. And in the early years, he's not making more than, 18, 20 million. And then at the end, he's making 40 million. Or I don't know what they could do. I would just think that it's going to depend on how the Harden thing shakes out. And then they probably might feel comfortable just giving him Toby's money. But it's going to be up in the air. And for that reason, I don't think it's obvious that he gets it.
Why I don't think it's obvious is because I think Tyrese Maxey, exactly what you said, Matt, has proved himself to be the third best player on a contender team. But a third best player on a contender team is one of the best movable pieces an NBA team has if you want to go get a bigger star. And Maxey might find himself in a sign and trade situation next year if this season runs its course and you guys get to the Eastern Conference Finals or even a finals run, and you're like, we're right there, but we need one more player. We need one more Brad Beal, Donovan Mitchell, whoever. We need one more for that championship. And you look around the squad, and who's going to get you that player? And is movable, and you're willing to trade. Tyrese Maxey gets you that player. So, and that's why he's also in limbo to me, because he could play his way into a cemented role for you guys, and I know the city would love that, but business-wise, Tyrese Maxey, to me, remains movable for a star. For a top-level star, he remains movable, which means that sign and trade is not going to be a max.
Well, maybe not, but if it happens, like if he moves for KD, I would think you definitely, like if he's moving for a star and he's the main piece, I would think that team probably maxes him just because you're moving your star for likely the biggest piece in the package being Tyrese Maxey. Maybe that doesn't automatically mean he gets it, but I actually think that would help his value, because then it's not like you're not, for us, he's the third best player. For someone else, he's now their future. He is the guy they're going to build around. So I will say that I've opened my eyes, and I said it when we initially first talked about it, but I'm at peace if they trade Tyrese Maxey for a big time player. That's okay.
Well,
I'm okay with it.
If I think if you guys end up trading Tyrese Maxey for a star, you all should go to Tyrese Maxey and just give him a formal handshake and say thank you. Because that, you might have been the sacrificial lamb, but you were the domino to fall for a bigger picture, a puzzle piece for a bigger picture. This is what had to happen. And I'm sorry it had to be you, but you're going to ultimately, and it's probably what no player ever wants to hear, but we might win a championship because of that, because of how well you played yourself into that situation as a steal in the draft, as a guy who made one of the biggest jumps from year 1 to year 2. Like you did all of that for us, and it manifested us in a big 3 that's going to win us a championship. So thank you.
When we traded for Jimmy Butler, I felt that way about Covington and Sharp.
Yep.
I still love Rocco.
Where is he now? Portland?
Honestly, don't know. He's had injury issues.
LAC, that's right.
He's at the Clippers, yeah.
Hope the brother's doing okay, which we have our eyes on the Clippers too. You guys covered that John Wall situation really good. The last player, or the last category that we got to do before we wrap up this YouTube video, is that we got no clue what they're going to do. And there's one player really who falls into it. We could all say what we think they're going to do. The second overall pick in last year, or in the 2020 draft, James Wiseman of the now world champion Golden State Warriors, next year will be up for a contract. And all the potential in the world, you could justify to anyone that he's going to be a star at one point in the league, but we literally have 0 game tape to back that up. So what do the Warriors do? I have no idea what James Wiseman demands, but it's got to be something, right?
Yeah,
They trade him before the rest of the
That's
league
gotta do.
finds out he stinks. Because
I
I don't think he's a good NBA player.
Really?
I think he was
Really? No, I don't agree with that.
like I just not last year, obviously when they won the title and he didn't play, but the year before he got hurt. Once I know it was his rookie year, but once he got hurt, the Warriors got so much better, and they went on their run, and Steph played better, and Wiseman just was such a negative player his rookie year, and then they win a title without him his second year. I think I wasn't that high on him coming out of college, and he really didn't play much in college anyway. And I'm right about that, right?
Yeah,
yeah, he didn't play a ton.
Kyrie type season.
He got banned.
Like,
he got
banned.
He did. Yeah, he got banned.
And so I think the Warriors are trying to trade him to Sacramento and get way too much for him.
Sacramento is probably all ears. If it's a bad trade, they are in. They are in on any bad trade. So I agree with you. I think that what they're going to try and do is rehab his value as much as they can by playing him with Steph. And not only that, like specifically having initiatives to like, hey, let's get him in a lot of pick and rolls against soft teams and soft matchups so that he can look like he's dominating, and then move him to, and look, he is still super young. I don't have it right here in front of me. He's raw talent. Like he could add a 3-ball to his game and become a totally different player. So I don't want to write him off yet, but he's not getting a big contract. Like even if he does have a good year, he would have to have like a Zion type year over an entire year, like a 21 high shooting percentage, which is not going to happen. So like he'll probably, I don't think he gets extended by the Warriors. I think he'll be traded.
Why right now where we sit, if I had to choose one, I choose he gets traded, because I think the Warriors in this title run realize how much is in the tank of Steph Curry. You got a full year of Klay Thompson to rehab and play, so he's going to come back better. Draymond realizes what he can do on the court and is going to settle into that role. Andrew Wiggins is good all of a sudden. So you're like, well, we got more with that. Jordan Poole is good all of a sudden. So you're like, wow, we got more with that. So you have those pieces that have blossomed for you. But why I can see them extending them is because the Warriors are one of those teams to me now that seem like we never want to go back to being bad. As long as the same people are here, as long as Bob Myers and Steve Kerr and the same people who are running the franchise are here, we don't want to go back to being bad. We don't want to go back to drafting 3 times in the lottery back to back years. And if we don't want to if we want to ward that off, sign Wiseman for when Steph inevitably starts to take a downturn, for when Klay inevitably starts to take a downturn. And now we can peacefully transition from the Steph Curry era to the James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole era. And that's the only reason I see them extending Wiseman and keeping him on the payroll, is that when Steph leaves, I want to make sure we're prepared for life beyond our current stars.
Yeah, it's NBA Golden State, never bad again. Never being bad again. I agree with you though. They had that 1 year stinking and
never bad again. You had that one in the tank for a minute. That's good, yo.
Golden State around. There's a couple options.
Yeah, I like that.